The impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be true.
And it is not a question of a little occultism or a touch of mysticism, Mr. Denton. It is vampirism, and there's a host of damned souls at Pelham House.
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night.
Here, the old gods aren't dead.
And what of the true god?
He's dead. He can't complain.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
You're listening to Paranormal UK Radio.
Hello everybody, this is Irene and Mark from the Paranormal UK Radio Show, the flagship show to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I'm with Mark Johnson.
I was waiting to see if you were going to remember this time.
I nearly forgot the blasted network's name.
Yeah,
I was tempted to use PAUK Radio, which is PAUK Radio, isn't it?
Well, that's our web address, paukradio.com, so that's easy, but sometimes people don't understand what the whole PAUK stands for, so now they do. What's that?
PAUK.
POC. Yeah, POC Radio.
Yeah.
There we go. Well.
Oh, God almighty. Anyway, how are you?
I am counting down the days.
God, so am I.
It will be exactly a month till I'm out there.
I know, isn't it exciting? I'm moving.
You'll leave me.
You'll come here to an empty house, sweetie.
No, you'll leave me stranded at the airport because the only way I'm getting to your house is.
Yeah, that's an idea. I never thought about that one.
Yeah.
I'll send a message. I'll tell you one thing. I've got a lot of friends at the airport. So you better behave yourself because I'll tell you those strip searches are lethal. Absolutely lethal.
They bring out the rubber glove and the lube.
Yeah, well, you said it. I did do that to a friend actually once. I did contact the security at one of the airports and I did have him strip searched.
Hey, I just hope I can get back in the country because for some reason, the last 2 times I've traveled internationally, when I come back in, there must be a Mark Johnson out there who's been naughty and on a list because both times, last 2 times I went, they pull me aside, take my passport, put me in a room and make me wait for a while they do a big check on me.
Oh.
It's like
exciting.
Did I say something wrong?
Can you imagine that if when you land here, it happens here?
It never bothers me going anywhere. It's coming back into the U.S. I get harassed a little bit. Don't know why.
Yeah. Well, it'd be good if they put you on a plane and sent you back to me, wouldn't it?
Well, it'd be good for you. I don't know how long the UK would put up with it, but
I think it would just keep sending you back and forth. Yeah.
There we go. I'll be constantly traveling in between homeless.
Yeah. Oh dear. Never mind, Mark. If they don't believe you, just tell them to contact me, and I'll tell them who you are.
If they send me back, just I'll bring some camping equipment and camp out at one of the abandoned castles or something.
Oh yeah.
Investigate while I'm at it.
Yeah. I know you. You'll be the nearest place you'll be camping at. It's in my back garden.
Yeah, probably. From the pictures I saw, it's nice. I'd hang out there with Gertie.
Would you?
Yeah.
Oh, in Gertie's gaff, yeah?
Yep. As long as she doesn't hog the bed, I don't know who would snore louder, her or me.
Oh.
Well, let's go ahead and let's get into our show tonight. Now, We're very happy to introduce tonight's guests, one half of whom I got to meet in person back in May. Tonight we're talking with Ronald C. Meyer and Mark Reeder, who are the authors of The Bigfoot Alien Connection Revisited. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Good to be here.
Good to be here.
Now,
Hello.
Now I got to meet Ron. I got to meet you at the paranormal conference in Cripple Creek in May, and of course your main background is as a documentary filmmaker.
Pretty much true. I do educational stuff, and I've done feature films as well over the years. And I had a distribution company and was a minor player in the growth of the cable network.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you've also, not only with the book that you wrote here with Mark, you've also been producing some documentaries on this subject of the Bigfoot alien connection.
Absolutely. It started with a series called Chasing Bigfoot back about 6 years ago. It was a 5-part series where I was commissioned by a distribution company to produce a series on the phenomenon of Bigfoot. And at the end of it, I came away thinking it isn't a wild beast, an unknown humanoid messing around. It's something beyond that. It's something paraphysical, which was the language people were using then. But that was way outside the norm at the time. Since then, it's all changed.
Yes, it has become a lot more mainstream now. Even in the regular paranormal community, everybody used to just go with the traditional ghosts explanation or demons, and now people are really starting to open up to the idea of different types of interdimensional activity or time slips or all sorts of different types of high strangeness. But I got to watch your documentary of this on YouTube, which I found very fascinating, and I've read the book. So tell us a little bit about how that particular set of investigations came about, because you investigated what, about 7 locations?
Yes, we did. I would say probably, well, I got the idea that, Mark and I also wrote a novel based on the idea that Bigfoot was a paranormal entity in some way. And so I knew I had learned quite a bit about the Bigfoot phenomenon because I did the series, but I didn't know crap about aliens. So I thought, well, the way I investigate things sometimes is to make a movie about it. So I thought I should make a movie about the Bigfoot alien connection. And that would give me impetus to run around and interview some people and get the perspective of, the alien community or the UFO community and see what that was about, which I did. And I got to get some pretty good luminaries in that movie. And it began to come together that they're probably one and the same, or at least sourced from the same thing. That was my conclusion in that movie. And from that, I was hired to do a series on what I found most interesting were these places called paranormal hotspots. If you're familiar with Skinwalker Ranch, are either of you heard of that?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's a paranormal hotspot. It's where multiple, let's say, impossible activities are occurring in a geographical area over an extended period of time. And those are paranormal hotspots. So I thought, well, what if I were to look for 5 of these places? And then there was another one, but I wanted to open a portal up myself on my land, so I did that too. So that's part of the book. And I thought, well, if we can go to 5 spots and I can confirm that there are these things called paranormal hotspots, I'll have a series. If I don't find any, I'll probably owe the distributor who paid for it a bunch of money because we got nothing. But it turns out every place I went, I got amazing stuff and had unusual experiences myself sometimes. And that's basically what the book is based on. I said, well, could I write a book that grouped the kind of paranormal phenomena that showed up by category? For example, time slips. How many times did that show up and what was their commonality? So that's what the book is based on. And that's what Mark helped me do, is to organize that and then relate it back historically, because these things aren't just happening now. They happened in the past, and they're probably increasingly happening in the future.
Now,
interesting.
Mark, we were talking briefly just before we came on the air, and I just wanted to talk about it again so that the audience hears it, that you came into this as very much a skeptic and are still a skeptic.
I am. My background is not in science; it's in the humanities and in history. So in history, you deal with these kind of hard, cold facts, and you try to weave a story around them. And it's kind of, in some ways, it's kind of easy. In some ways, it's difficult. So when Ron approached me with this project, I told him up front, I said, well, I'm a skeptic about anything paranormal. I think everything can be pretty much explained once you know all the facts behind it. And he said, that's fine, your skepticism is welcome. And so we started to work on the project together. And since I'm a historian, I went back in history and looked for information on people like Francis of Assisi, Muhammad, different people throughout history whose the events of their lives are fairly well known, and the events of their lives turn out to have amazing parallels to the events that happen to individuals now in the 21st century, people who talk about Bigfoot sightings or UFO sightings. And so as Ron and I got into the project more and more, and I did more historical research, while I still remain a skeptic, I am not a skeptic like this can't not possibly happen. My skepticism actually is sort of around what Ron was talking about. I just can't see Bigfoot as this big hairy creature that swings through the trees of the Pacific Northwest terrorizing the Salish Indians. But I can see Bigfoot as an interdimensional being who exists for some reason. What it is yet, I don't know. I have speculation on it, but I don't know for sure.
There's, Bigfoot has been really popular in our culture, especially in the 70s. It really, I think, took off in a lot of different ways with John Green's books, and then, of course, the famous Patterson-Gimlin film, which they've never been able to successfully debunk. But lately, especially these last several years, there's been many different television shows, some much better than others, looking into the phenomenon. And again, most of the time they are looking from as a scientific or let's go out in the woods and see what we can find type of thing. But yet some of these shows and people, they're starting to look more and understand more that there is a very high strangeness aspect to dealing with this phenomenon. There was a great show that was on Discovery Plus, and they've been repeating it on History Channel. And they might make a second season. I don't know if you heard of it, called Alaskan Killer Bigfoot.
No, I haven't heard of it.
No, haven't.
Okay, if you get a chance, watch it, because it's
We've
set up.
We've interviewed them, haven't we, Mark?
Yes, we did. One of the cast members, Ash Niederhoff. It's about a little native fishing village up in Alaska that was abandoned back in the 50s because supposedly the townspeople were being terrorized by a local Bigfoot, and some people were showing up dead. So they abandoned it years ago, and the premise of the show was several of the locals were sent there by the elders to see if it could be resettled because they're looking to expand and, they need it for economic reasons. And the show sounds corny, but I will say that I was fairly impressed with what happens on the show because they encounter, it's not exactly, there's some Bigfoot-like activity, but there's so much of it that's interdimensional in nature, and so many things happened and were caught on camera that. And I'm a filmmaker myself too. I have my bachelor's degree in film. I've done a few documentaries myself, and I know BS when I see it. And this show is actually pretty good. And we interviewed we interviewed two people who are on the show. And it goes a lot along the lines of what you have been doing with your research in looking into these areas of high strangeness surrounding Bigfoot.
Yeah, I mean, Bigfoot is probably not our primary focus anymore. The whole portals ideas, like for you, has sort of captivated me more than anything, especially after what we did at Bradshaw Ranch, which is the next Skinwalker Ranch, as you might know.
Mm-hmm. Mark, can I say something?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I apologize for any strange noises coming from this area because my office is out of bounds at the moment. Things are happening in there. And I'm sitting in the snug with Dirty. And she's snoring.
her British bulldog.
She's snoring. So if you hear any, it's not me, it's the dog. Okay? But what I wanted to ask you, both of you, is have you ever thought of coming to Europe? Because reports like this of a Bigfoot-type creature have been going on for centuries over here in Europe. There's one in Scotland, we've got one in Wales, you've got Russia, you've got all over. There's always reports of this sort of thing.
Well, and there's also reports
absolute legends that go back for centuries, Mark.
Well, and not just Bigfoot, it's just the areas of high strangeness. And it's like, Ron, what you were talking about with focusing on these areas, these portals, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you've actually worked to open portals?
Yeah, we did.
How did you do that?
Do you want a long story or a short story?
The short version. Short version would be okay.
Before we embarked on the series, The Paranormal Highway, it occurred to me that would it be possible to open a portal? And I own 40 acres in the Rocky Mountains here in Colorado, near the big park, Rocky Mountain National Park, and it would be it's classic Bigfoot country. People have talked about having Bigfoot experiences there all the time, and so we ran into a lady who had opened a portal in the state of Washington, and she gave us some ideas of how we might do it, and it was kind of based on starting with a gifting site. And seeing if we could, do you know what gifting sites are?
Yes, that's where, especially, excuse me, with Bigfoot activity, leaving gifts, and sometimes they give gifts back and establishing that form of communication.
Yeah, it's sort of saying, we're here and we're willing to, interact with you in some way by moving.
Yeah, we got a lady over here that actually leaves gifts for them.
So we hid in a bottle a feather, and this land we own is isolated, and we're a small community that own 40 acres, and it's gated, and people just can't get into it. And it was underneath a big rock, and nothing happened for at least 3 times, and then the 4th time, feather was out of the bottle and stuck in a crevice. So we said, "Oh, there's something here that wants to play." And then the next thing that happened, the next time we came back, somebody dropped a mutilated deer at our gifting site.
Whoa.
Okay.
And that got our attention in a big way, plus kind of freaking us out a little bit.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And so that we started taking readings, and we found elevated magnetic readings above the deer in kind of a dome shape. Which was, interesting. And we set up a trail cam on the site. It takes a while to get there from where we live, so we don't hang out there regularly. And when we came back and we wanted to see what was on the card that was captured on the trail cam, and everything was kind of normal. We had a bobcat and some other animals that show up, but none of them really touched the carcass. Kind of walked around it. But then one of the captures was this really weird static sort of image that seems impossible for a digital camera to record. And it was dome shaped that kind of matched the outline of the dome that we measured with our electromagnetic fluctuations. And as we looked at it a little closer, we could see that there was some movement inside of that. And just to keep it short, we did it 3 times, and each time there was some creature that we captured on the trail cam and could resolve that it's not like any entity you'd ever see here. One of them looked like a little baby brontosaurus.
Oh.
Interesting.
And then it was over with. Like all portals, they seem to come and go.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, yeah, we like what you're doing. Tell the world about it.
Very interesting.
That is interesting, yeah. I've seen portals, but what I've seen are very, very similar very similar to me to, like, if you were to drop oil into a puddle, that luminous pattern you get. When I see the portal, I see that starting to vibrate.
And where do you see that?
Well, anywhere, really. Wherever I happen to be, wherever there's a portal. Depending also on what work I'm doing, but,
Cool.
Yeah, she's very sensitive to those types of energies.
So
and time slips. I'm always having time slips.
Yeah, so Irene would be considered a sensitive, or you consider yourself that in a general way?
I don't know what I am. What would you call me, Mark? Because there's a number of things, isn't it, really?
What was the term that we came up with?
Extra sensor.
An extra sensor, yes.
For me, isn't it? I'm an extra sensor. That's what.
Because nobody knows what that means, and that's fine because we don't either. It encompasses so many different things. She doesn't like being called a psychic medium or any of these other terms because there's so much that's different. So
to me, it's natural. So I don't like titles. I don't like to be given a name which puts me into a pot with everybody else, because I'm not like everybody else.
Fair enough.
I'm totally different.
No, I call her a pain in the ass, but
my husband calls me an alien.
It could all be true.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. Well, and that's the funny thing. Let me ask you this: with the research that you've been doing with portals, can these be opened anywhere, or are you finding them within specific locations that there has to be the right conditions?
Certainly, there's 2 parts. That's a good question, because one part is are they anywhere, but I think you need people to have an interaction with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's hard to say. You know, that when we did Bradshaw, of course, are you familiar with Sedona?
I've always wanted to go, but I've never been. But I'm very familiar with it. Yes.
I've done it, Mark. I've not been there, but I've done it.
Okay.
Done Sedona.
So it's a place that's known for vortexes or portals, right?
Yeah.
And
very high energy there.
So there's a guy, electrical engineer, who developed devices to see if he could detect these vortexes or portals, which he seems to say he says he can do it, and he's found them, and he's noticed that they move around. They don't show up. They're not always in the very same place.
I can agree with that. And also, your description of what you see as a portal would be different to mine, because I think it's your perception of it would be different because of the way I see it in a different way. But your description of the shape of it was right, and what you're saying about them moving around, yes, they do move around.
And the other thing you ask about, it seems that the geology of the area may be a big factor in allowing these things to happen or attracting them. Like Sedona's got a base, it's under a huge quartz deposit with iron oxide sitting on top of it in terms of the red rock, and that creates a constant magnetic fluctuation, and electrical activity coming from the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Might act like a transmitter or a trans receiver.
And that fits in. That fits in with
that fits in with hauntings as well. A lot of hauntings. Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I mean, well, that actually fits in with what modern physics is talking about in terms of magnetic portals. You can concentrate a certain amount of energy, whether it's through the quartz and the iron ore or some other way, and create an actual magnetic portal that would lead somewhere. Right now, nobody knows exactly where something like that would lead, but science is slowly inching its way toward understanding that portals are not some sort of magic phenomena that happens because you have a port key out of Harry Potter, but it's a reality that exists with us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
With portals, again, you had mentioned earlier about the Skinwalker Ranch, and of course, all the research that's been going on there since the mid '90s, and of course now the wonderful television show, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch on History, which is fantastic. Because I like their approach, and it's very grounded in science and research and experimentation. But that location is notorious for their portals that have been seen opening in the sky at night. It'd be dusk, and yet I think the owner of the ranch at the time saw a portal open in the sky, and there was bright, sunny blue sky behind it as a craft flew through, to the NIDS team witnessing through some infrared binoculars a portal opening by Homestead 2 on the ground, and some humanoid creature crawling out of it and running into the woods.
There was that portal I saw in Texas. That was on the ground.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah, all those years ago.
Yeah.
And another portal I saw out there was on a runway.
On an airport runway?
Yeah, but it was one of these light aircraft runways. It wasn't one of the, not one of the big ones. It was on the runway.
So with these portals that you've been investigating, what type of phenomenon are you experiencing around these portals? Now, you mentioned seeing the animals on the trail cam. I mean, when you're there in person, what tends to happen other than electromagnetic field fluctuations?
If you have a thermal of some sort, you'll usually
cold spots. Sorry.
Cold, yeah, she said
hot and cold spots.
Yeah. So, for example, there's probably the most famous Dogman type thing is the Beast of Bray Road. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm.
So we did a big investigation there, and the long or short story again.
Whatever one you want.
We got a half hour, so.
So the Beast of Bray Road is a Dogman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the guy who owns the property next to the road is a gentleman farmer from Illinois, and he bought the property to be a gentleman farmer, and turns out he's got this creature running around on his property, and he's become kind of obsessed with it. And he's got footprints, and he's got some really good photographs he's captured on his trail cam and other cameras. And in some ways, you could say other people would interpret what he grabbed was a Bigfoot, like it was another cryptid. Anyhow, so there was this place that he would call his place of high strangeness, and said, well, you guys should come out here and do your investigation at this place. He said he wouldn't go into that area, which is kind of a wooded hedgerow type thing, by himself. And he said he's seen the footprints go in there and just disappear and come out and disappear. And there's 3 sizes of footprints: small, medium, and large. And we're doing our nighttime investigation and at this place, and there was definitely an intense cold spot there at this place that we could pick up on our thermal and record, with maybe a temperature difference of about 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And some of the people there that were part of the team felt something, heard something, but like a lot of these cases, had no visual going on. And so he said, let's go walk away a bit and then come back. And we had set a REM pod up, which is a kind of a ghost detecting device. And when we came back, our lead investigator, Alan, said, oh my God, there's eyes right there. And right next to the REM pod, probably about, I would say, 1.5 yards, was something that just sat there. It was elongated. It was on all fours. And it had the eye shine aspect, the reflecting lights. And we're all talking and yelling and shouting white light and red light on it. And it basically sat there and kind of ignored us, which no wild animal would ever do. And we filmed it, and it was cool.
It was as curious about you as you were of it.
Yeah, and
obviously that's why it hung around.
And no wild animal is going to do that.
Yeah. Oh, you're right.
They just wouldn't. And so maybe we filmed the Beast of Bray Road in small incarnation, but it also had the cold portal, cold area associated with it, and the felt experiences that people had. So it had multiple aspects to the whole thing.
I'd love you two to come over here and investigate over here. If you ever do, my house is here for you. Just come to my house, and you can do anything from there.
So
use it as a base.
So do you have any money to get us on an airplane?
No. Anybody out there that would like to pay money to get them on an airplane to come over to investigate in the United Kingdom?
Who should they contact? You?
Sorry?
Should they contact you?
Sure, they can reach out to us at info@paukradio.com.
There you go.
There we go. We can start a GoFundMe page.
This is the beginning of a great synchronicity.
Make it into a competition. The person that gives the most money can join in the hunt for Bigfoot in this country, or the investigations that you're going to do.
Well, we'll tell you what, guys. Since I'm going over there, I am bringing some of my equipment with me, so I can do definitely a preliminary of a couple of spots while I'm out there. And again, in the time since I was investigating to now, my whole thought processes on the so-called paranormal is vastly different than it used to be. And these areas of high strange, well, because of you and because of areas that I've investigated, even here in New Jersey, there are several hot spots. We investigated 2 houses on the same street, this little town, that were started off as both said they had ghost activity. And we investigated for a few years coming back. And over time, we realized whatever was there was attached to the land. Now, the one idea that never occurred to me, I wasn't into it back then. I did believe in interdimensional activity. I knew that there was some type of elemental type of intelligence on the property, and it was the whole area. It wasn't just the houses isolated, it was the land. But the idea of portals playing a factor into it had not occurred to me back at that time. Now it's something that I'm very much, thinking of and aware of, and would be trying to track and measure in these hotspots.
And I do believe there are powers that be that are quite aware of this, and that there's technology there that they're after. When I talked to Travis, from Skinwalker Ranch, Travis, he said the Mormons are after the technology.
Dr. Travis Taylor?
Yeah.
Well,
they've been interested in, the possibility of a certain sort of free energy, maybe beyond, fusion or something that would deal with the 5th state of matter, which is now under intense investigation, and it has a lot to do with time slips and might be responsible for spoon bending and stuff like that. And it involves consciousness. So there's a lot going on. So that's why these places, in fact, Brandon Fugel tried to buy Bradshaw Ranch the month before we got out there and started our investigation.
Yeah, I know Brandon is, again, you're right. That whole area is a very heavy Mormon community. The whole state is. And him being Mormon and being the entrepreneur that he is, that kind of makes sense. Because that community is always kind of looked out for itself and looked out for certain things a lot of other communities don't. But I'm still...
Their origin story is also one of portals. You want to describe it, Mark? Are you familiar with the Mormon origin story?
You mean with Joseph Smith and the angel?
And the tablets and the angel Moroni?
Yeah. That's that in itself is an ancient myth. It goes back to the Epic of Gilgamesh in the 3rd millennia BC. The idea that supernatural beings actually exist and they bring information to individuals, and so this information is not just for the individual, but is to be disseminated. See it again with Jesus, with Buddha. You see it with Muhammad, with St. Paul or Saul of Tarsus. These people, St. Francis of Assisi, these are just the well-known ones that we know of. And these supernatural beings, and let's go back and think about it in the context of you're a farmer in Sumeria in 2900 BC. You're not going to think of a supernatural being as an alien coming from Alpha Centauri. You're going to think of it in terms of whatever religious icons that you have available to you, and so these beings will come as angels, or they come as devils or demons, but they come with a message. And so Joseph Smith, he has his Angel Moroni, because in the 19th century nobody's thinking about landings on the moon or something like that, and so these paranormal individuals, these supernatural individuals, bring forth this information and say, this is for you, and it's especially important that you spread this word.
It's fascinating. I mean, I do believe this has been a part of our history since the beginning of time. It's always been interpreted in different ways. I mean, even Dr. Taylor really got his notoriety on Ancient Aliens to start, but I really like the experiments that he's been running on Skinwalker Ranch. We had interviewed Thomas Winterden about a year or so ago, and talking about how the whole show came about, and they were resistant to it at first. Brandon didn't want to do it, and it took a lot of convincing to get them to do this show, which now it's a huge hit. But the types of activity that go on there, it's not just portals. There's this intelligence that permeates the whole area. Yes, portals are seen opening and things coming in and out, or like the experiment they did at Homestead 2 with the music, and they had the rabbi, I forget his name, I always like this guy though, doing the chanting and the singing, and that seemed to affect the thermal, and you see the cold spot opening up, like Irene was saying, of a portal seemed to be opening. And it has a lot to do with sound. I think sound and vibration has a lot to do with these things. And yet there's something else going on that I think is just beyond our comprehension in terms of these intelligences. And I keep going back to Skinwalker because it's very fresh in my mind, and I remember my talks with Thomas about his own personal experiences when they first got the ranch. And there was a couple of times he was warned to get out of certain areas, like a voice would just appear out of nowhere and said, "You need to leave now." That was around one of the times then when he got the encephalitis and the water on his brain. There have been other places where people have heard voices. In that Alaskan Killer Bigfoot show, the one gentleman we talked to, he's a natural survivalist, and he was out in the woods on a tree stand in the middle of the night, and he was filming himself, and he kept hearing things all around him, but he couldn't see it. And when he came down out of the tree, he heard a voice talk into his ear and scared the living crap out of him. And his reaction was genuine. Well, I was able to go back into the episode and download the audio and enhance it, and there's something there. I can't quite make it out, but there's most definitely a strange guttural type of voice that appeared. So again, I know we've focused a lot on portals, but whether these portals open or close, it seems like sometimes there are things in these areas that are there for a significant amount of time. Indeed.
By the way, Mark and I are part of the lineage of Scientology, which was an awakening in the desert, and by L. Ron Hubbard and a few other people. And it led to in their technique of clearing, which was appropriated into a kind of an enlightenment practice that I've expanded into effortless power and situational awareness, and we teach, we call it kind of a flow practice, and it's derivative of what happened in the desert with these boys back then. Created a religion, so it's a small example, and it's been transformative for the people who practice it. Would you say, Mark?
Very much so. it's the clearing. The idea of clearing is just in some ways a minor part of it. From the way that most people think about clearing, it's basically an idea of tuning into your body in such a way that a person is no longer trying to use their discrete large muscles to do something, but instead is in a state where their action is a result of being in the relationship with the person. Instead of trying to do something to the person or having something done to them, there's a relationship of sort of a conflation of ideas and movement that produce something larger and more memorable.
Turns Mark into a Superman.
I wouldn't say that, but
for a brief moment. But yeah, it does. It's effortless power, and you're in relationship. You let go of. It's all about letting go. It's not about building anything new up.
Yeah.
Which was the problem with the New Age movement. Became a personal identity project to get better and succeed more. This is the opposite. It's letting go to be in the flow, as it were.
Yeah.
So just a plug for that.
With some of these locations that you've investigated, have you come across phenomena that I will call orbs of light? That's these individual like balls of light that could be as small as a baseball, as big as a soccer ball.
Yes.
That seem to be around these areas and acting intelligently.
Yeah, at Bradshaw Ranch, we had some incredible examples. The plasma balls, plasma crafts, usually orange in color. But probably the weirdest thing we had is there's this place, again, a focal point on the ranch where we clearly detected a portal in multiple ways, and we set up our trail camera on it. And all our night footage shows what I would call a black triangle pyramid sitting over the space, quite large. It's moderately translucent, and twice I would say we had hundreds of orbs flowing out of it, light orbs, and then flowing back into it, one time coming out, one time going in. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes and no. No, I think I saw a clip in the trailer for the Bradshaw Ranch of that.
Yes, I'm sure you did.
That type of phenomenon, and again, not saying I'm showing my own little bit of skepticism. There is usually when I see that type of activity, first thing I want to do is shine a flashlight through it and make sure it's not like dust or pollen from trees or whatnot, because it causes the same type of phenomenon. But I haven't personally witnessed this, but I've interviewed witnesses that have seen these large plasma-like balls in association with Bigfoot activity. Now, there was an old friend of mine, I haven't talked to him in a long time, but he was a Bigfoot researcher out of Ohio, Tim Stover. He saw Bigfoot, and I think now going on over 30 years ago, while on hunting in a tree stand, and when the sun came up, he looked over and saw this thing standing 40 feet away, watched it for a couple of minutes. It didn't seem to see him, but then it turned and walked off. And that's when he got scared, because then he could see all the muscles underneath him. He goes, that's not a guy in a costume. A few years later, he'd go out all the time looking for it again, researching. And there was a period of time where when he was filming in the woods, you'd see these balls of light moving behind him in the woods. Now, sometimes he would point the camera at himself and film and narrate, not realizing that he's catching this ball moving behind him. And what interested me was it was weaving in front of and behind trees, showing that it wasn't anything that was close to the lens, like a speck of dust or an insect or anything, that it was probably about 30, 40 feet away and maybe the size of a soccer ball. And then a couple weeks later, he calls me up at night. My wife and I happen to be at Walmart. My phone rings and I pick it up and it's him. He's calling me from the woods. He's standing in the middle of the woods and he has cell signal, totally freaking out. And I go, well, what happened? He was saying that as he was walking through the woods, all of a sudden this ball of light floated out of the woods, floated up and hovered in front of his face. And it lasted about 30, 40 seconds. And then I asked him, it popped into my head to ask him, how did you feel when that was happening? And he had to think about it for a second. He goes, you know what? I felt perfectly calm and peaceful. And it wasn't until he thought about his cell phone camera, they reached for his camera to grab it to take a picture. This thing just popped and went out, disappeared. And he goes, that's when he got scared. That's when the fear all came rushing in, and he called me on the phone right then and there. But I found it fascinating that whatever this thing was, it was communing with him in some way, that he was peaceful. And it wouldn't surprise me. I think you've mentioned this in your books, but I know of other people that this happened to, that sometimes people get information downloads.
Yeah, that's a big part of our thinking on this, what this is all about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The information download, again, it's a historical phenomenon that you go back to the Epic of Gilgamesh, you go back to Muhammad, whether you want to do it with Joseph Smith and the Angel Moroni. Individuals get these downloads all the time. Aaron Schrodinger talked about it, how he got these sort of downloads that would give him ideas for quantum mechanics, for example. And Stephen Jobs is a good example.
Yeah.
He's not a computer expert, but he would get these sort of downloads of, let's create an iPod, and with an idea of how to actually make the iPod, even though he was not any kind of computer genius.
Nikola Tesla was the same way. He would receive these downloads for a lot of his inventions. And then there are also times that people, hint, hint, Irene, who have had these experiences and have these downloads, but they don't know what the download was. Only that information was downloaded, but it's not accessible through the consciousness.
Okay.
In other words, when the time is right, the download will come to fruited. It'll come to the conscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
So you're aware that there's been this group of people that are in the high tech science thing. It's called the Invisible College. That that they keep their profile low and they get these downloads and convert them into technology and discovery and science and that sort of stuff. That's existing today, and it goes way back to in time, because getting these downloads is trouble for your career if you talk about them.
In a lot of ways, yes. It's like modern science taking an interest in what we're all researching. You know, regular scientists can have their careers ruined, or their funding dries up, or they're laughed out of their specialty for even considering things like that. Now, again, some of this is becoming a little bit more mainstream, but that's the way it was for many, many years.
Yeah, I think it's becoming mainstream really quickly right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think shows like Skinwalker Ranch are really kind of breaking that mold of showing this high strangeness paranormal and them using real world science and scientific principles to investigate it No, they sometimes bring in psychics. They sometimes bring in the Native Americans, or even like the rabbi doing more metaphysical type of experiments, yet at the same time, they've got all their instruments running. And that frequency of 1.6 gigahertz is really fascinating. And you experienced that in your when you were doing your documentary on the Bigfoot alien connection. Was it like 1.7 gigahertz between 1617?
That wasn't me.
Oh, that wasn't you.
No.
I could swear it was you when I was watching the documentary recently.
You got to be a little careful about expecting science to eventually, as we understand it, the body of knowledge that's the current theories to explain this stuff. To break things down into little tiny things and a few forces is probably not going to ever do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to explain you and I or Mark or Irene. And I think there's a growing awareness that this is the case, because right now, we don't even know what life is, and we don't really know what intelligence is. And it's probably not going to be likely that it'll be reducible to a bunch of little tiny things bouncing around, and that nobody can really agree on one theory of, and a couple of forces. It's just not going to happen. Although it's cool, and some technologies come out of it, but there's a growing sense that that's doomed to really get into the depth of what we are as human beings.
Actually, I do agree with you on that.
Oh, good.
I mean, I like with the shows and what they're doing to try to make it more legitimate, but at the same time, I agree with you, and I agree science has not reached that point yet, if ever, to be able to fully explain it, and there are other techniques that could be used to research and try to have a better understanding of all this.
So you have to make a distinction between the scientific method, which is one way of gaining knowledge, and then science, which is this collection of writings and stuff that's been passed down generation to generation, which keeps changing all the time and gets updated and so on. So that's a going process. But the scientific method is, you see a pattern, you form a hypothesis, you do some experiments, and you make an experiment or refute it. Now that's the scientific method in a simple.
I hear Gertie.
So this is an interesting historically as well. When you think about the pre 20th century, where science is beginning to really take root with the scientific revolution of the 17th century, with people like Galileo and Newton and Leibniz, and moving forward, life was actually kind of gritty and difficult. Life expectancy wasn't much past 50. Most of it had to do with things like public sanitation. Also the fact that life was hard. There wasn't an overabundance of food necessarily, and public health wasn't really known about. So you go to the 20th century, and science, what we think of, what the layperson thinks of as science, says, wait a minute, if we have public sanitation and we improve our communication skills through
antibiotics,
we have antibiotics, we get radio, we get television, we get nuclear energy. Suddenly science seems to be this catch-all word for it can answer anything. Mm-hmm. And we think, okay, well, science will understand this idea of orbs, or it'll understand the idea of the Bigfoot or something, and that's not
guaranteed.
It's not only not guaranteed, it's a false promise. The scientific method is not about necessarily understanding the way the universe works or the reason for the universe's existence.
I agree with that. I think because we went from one one extreme of looking at things from a religious standpoint to the other extreme of only wanting to look at it from the scientific method in order to validate, put it under a microscope and say, okay, yes, this is real, when there's something that's actually really in between. And a lot of it has to deal more with not only human consciousness, but even our own intuition and psychic abilities and abilities to see beyond what we perceive as the physical world, because there is a lot more going on in our world than we realize that we could see with and experience with our five senses.
And look, we also have to remember that our five senses are filtered by the zeitgeist. If you're having a paranormal experience in the 18th century, you're going to explain it much differently than you are going to explain it in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and imagine where we'd be in the 22nd century.
Yeah.
We're coming close to the end of the show here. The one thing else I wanted to bring up is I know you have a new film that's getting ready to come out about the Bradshaw Ranch. Could you briefly talk about it and when people can expect to see it?
Well, we're going to premiere it at the PhenomenaCon in Vernal, Utah, at the big conference there in September.
Mm-hmm.
We're still debating the title a little bit with the distributor, but we actually interact with alien entities in a way that's very convincing, that we capture on film and verify scientifically.
That I'd like to see. I really would want to see that.
Yeah, it blew us away.
Interesting. Well, definitely. I'm with Irene. I definitely want to see that once it's ready. So in the meantime, you have your book and your documentary, The Bigfoot Alien Connection. Where can people find both of those?
Well, the book's available on Amazon. You can, in Barnes and Noble, you can buy it as either a digital copy where the pictures will be in color, or you can buy a hard copy and they'll be in black and white. We also have another novel, which can I mention it? Absolutely. Aliens 2035, and it explores the idea that if we are one lineage of life and we encounter another lineage of life, if we ever figure out what that is, we may not be able to really communicate with it in any ordinary way. And we also suggest that we may be growing an alien life form having to do with the internet, and that eventually, if we want to pull the plug, we're going to have to kind of eliminate everything electronically to pull the plug. If we want to, and then I would say everything. Well, not everything. The Paranormal Highway series is available on Amazon. You can watch for free, Amazon Prime. The Bigfoot Alien Connection Revealed is on YouTube. It's got over 4.4 million views on it and similar number on other platforms. So it's a huge success. We got another one that's out on YouTube called The Bigfoot of Bailey, Colorado, and its portals. Speaking of portals. Mm-hmm. That was just released on YouTube. And I think it's on Amazon too now. And it'll be on Tubi.
Fantastic.
So, and that's probably good enough. And
so how can people get in touch with you? Or again, you mentioned the PhenomenaCon conference where you'll be attending. Where would that be that people can come and see you or talk with you?
We'll have a vendor table.
And that's in Vernal, Utah, in early September.
Yeah, and I think it's the first evening they're going to screen the movie.
Excellent.
It's the first evening. I know it is.
Okay. Well, excellent. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for talking with us tonight. We've been talking with Ronald C. Meyer and Mark Reeder. about the book, The Bigfoot Alien Connection Revisited, and so much more. Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time out to talk with us this evening.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
We should all meet in Wales.
Yes, definitely. We'll get that GoFundMe page going.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks again. And I want to thank everyone for tuning into another edition of the Paranormal UK radio show, the flagship show here on the Paranormal UK radio network.
And we apologize for Gertie snoring.
Oh, yes. She's going to keep me awake the whole time I'm there. I know it.
Yes, because
actually, we'll have a snoring competition. So, Irene, where can people find us?
Everywhere, people, just about everywhere.
All right. Well, everyone, you have a great evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. We will see you again in the next edition. Be good humans, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.